How do you know that when you publish a podcast episode that you did everything right? You just feel like you've done it, you've checked, you've double checked, and yet sometimes things still slip by. Well, now there's a new platform out there that can actually do that last check for you and make sure that your podcast is really ready for prime time delivery. Today we are chatting with Damian Moore. He's the founder and CEO of Audio Audit. It's a platform that makes sure your podcast is perfect each time you publish, and you can find out more about it at audioaudit.io, which, of course, we'll have a link to here at the bottom of the show notes. Damian, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me, Matthew.
Oh, it's great to meet you and chat about this platform. So before we talk specifically about Audio Audit, what was your journey like into developing a podcast platform? Were you in the space prior? Do you have a lot of podcast experience? Are you just a big fan of podcasts?
Yeah, I'm from a sort of software developer background. I've been a massive fan of podcasting since probably 2005. So quite early on, I've always been listening to them. I found they're good, whether in bed and whether out running, that sort of thing. But I'm used to building software and tools, mainly for other people, doing contracts and building web applications, front end, back end sort of thing. I guess the inflection point for me to start Audio Audit was when my first child was on the way, and I was doing a lot of decorating. Had paint all over my hands, had a load of audiobooks and podcasts queued up. And then I was getting quite annoyed because I was hearing lots of sort of mistakes sort of creep in. One of my biggest bugbears was like the volume levels. So going from one show to the next and having to turn the volume up or down. Like I've got these earphones in, I don't want to get paint all over them. And it can be it can be quite a serious change and quite painful actually. Listening to those sudden changes. And in the software industry, we have sort of test-driven development and automated test suites, those kinds of things. So if we release new code to production, we want to make sure it doesn't break other things. So I felt there should be some combination of these two worlds to create something to take a lot of effort away from producers and make the experience better for listeners.
So you go ahead and you launch Audio Audit. Tell us how it works and what the experience is like for a podcaster thinking about using it.
Yeah, so I'm trying to help people to improve the quality of their podcasts. So podcasting is great because anyone can get started. It's easier to create a podcast than it is like a YouTube video. And that's great. I think people should get out there and start putting content out right away. But when you get to the point where you want to focus a bit more on quality, you probably don't have like a sound engineering background, or you don't know if the producer you're hiring is doing everything that they can. You can at that point upload one of your episodes to Audio Audit, and it will tell you where you probably want to be focusing your efforts. There are two ways you can use it. Either you upload an MP3 file before you publish, and the other way is you can also connect it up to your RSS feed and have it automatically send you an email every time you've released a new episode.
Oh, so wait, that begs a very interesting question. So if I'm using a platform that does dynamic ad insertion, let's say, and I've connected Audio Audit to the RSS feed, it's going to pull the final version with the ads in there. And that's going to tell me not just if my content is okay, but also if my ads to my content, right? Like sometimes a big problem you have in podcasting is the content's okay, but then the ads are mixed differently. And so you've got either like super loud ads to quiet content or the inverse. So
yeah, exactly.
Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And the platforms will often boost or lower the volume of the audio as well. They're trying to do normalization, or they're doing some AI magic editing. Like, it's good to see the before you publish and after publish, I think, at least a couple of times. Um, I expect people to use it quite a lot heavily at the start. And then once they've refined their workflow, sort of built some templating around what they're doing, then the sort of email automatic reports will probably be enough. And then you sort of just keep an eye on those and see if they suddenly dip.
And if you start to have issues that you weren't thinking of. So a few things that audio audit can look for in your show is volume, loudness, like you were just talking about, right? You don't want things being too dynamic, too many peaks and valleys where somebody turns up the volume because you're too quiet and then you start screaming in their ear and it hurts. It'll clip out silence at the beginning and the end, which, sometimes as somebody who used to work in radio, if I hear 2 seconds of silence, my panic brain goes off thinking that we're off the air or something like that. So I'm sure not everyone has that experience with podcasts, but I sometimes do. Interestingly enough, the next two, restarted sentences and profanities and swearing. How do you program the software to kind of listen for those and to identify that effectively?
Yeah. So this was a problem I noticed a lot in audiobooks, actually, that they're obviously so long and they just fluff a chapter name, or they re-record it, but the editor forgets to cut the original one out. What we're doing basically is using transcription models. So AI comes in and converts everything to text. Then we have, in the case of swear words, we've got a list of swear words from US and UK. Sort of built those up, and it's quite simple searching for the text. But then the nice thing is it gives you a waveform of your show at the top, and then you've got orange marks, like exactly where those swear words are. The restarted
I do love the way you visualize this on your platform. We'll definitely make sure you go to a link and just check out the homepage, because there's a nice little display of what it's going to look like, and it will totally make sense to people as they see it. Where the issues are and how they're labeled. It's very well thought out and very considerate to make it easy for somebody using it to be able to use it.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, and then restarted sentences is similar. It uses the same transcription underneath and then does some sort of fuzzy matching for restarted sentences. So if it notices there's like a sentence and there's 60% of the words are the same from one sentence to the next, it sort of highlights those. Like, it might pull up where you might get some false positives. Like if someone says yeah when they're interviewing someone and the other person replies with a yeah, that sort of, it's not clever enough to detect that those are two different people, but it's very quick to just click on each of those and just double check. I try and raise everything in a way that makes it easy just to check. Like I err on the side of caution.
That's fair. And then the other piece that it does is it will handle encoding and compression. So if you are not skilled in that, or you don't even know what those words are, this is very helpful to make your audio sound as rich and as clean as possible. And then adding the metadata to the file. In these days, is that still helpful to have that information directly in the MP3?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. It's if someone shares your show directly, and a lot of players allow this, you can send the file to a computer to listen to, or someone else. Having the artist name, the podcast name, and the cover artwork is always great to just keep that attached. And more search engines are going to become aware of audio files. Transcription's very easy to do now, so I think that's going to be another way of sort of indexing that data and making sure that people know that's your content.
Are you a content creator yourself? Do you make music, video, audio, anything like that? Or are you just a very passionate listener who wants his experience improved?
My mum was a music teacher. She's retired now, so I kind of guess I've got that ear for quality, and I've always been playing around with mixers and making music, that sort of thing. I'm just starting to get into content creation myself. So I've got one YouTube video. I've started getting onto podcasts. Got like a bit of a playlist curated for my YouTube channel, which I'm gradually working my way through.
That raises another good question. So it's called Audio Audit. Does it work on video as well? Can you upload a video and get a similar review?
Not right now. I think it'd be really good to do that. Obviously, there's the technical challenges of dealing with video, just that they require so much space and processing time. But yeah, it's definitely something I'd like to do. It's also a matter of the different platforms or where your content is being published to. So YouTube will have their loudness standards. If it's going to like broadcast TV, that's going to be a different loudness standards. So there's kind of got to be different standards that I bake in and allow people to sort of define their standards within the system before I get to that point.
Gotcha. Well, I think what we'll do is we'll do a episode of Podcasting Tech. We'll run it through Audio Audit. We'll do a nice little screen record of that so people can kind of see what it looks like, how we're doing with our audio. I'm afraid to find out how we're doing with our audio. But no, this is a very cool platform. So again, it's audioaudit.io. There will be a link here at the bottom for folks who want to check that out and, have somebody listen and check out their audio for them, especially if they're not sure about somebody else who's working on it, or if they themselves are not, proficient audio engineer. Damian, before we let you go, a couple of questions we like to ask everybody about the space. And since you're more of a listener than a content creator, I'll be curious to hear some of your answers. The first one is there a place where you'd like to see improvement in the podcasting space overall, other than obviously everybody's audio quality, which they'll come to you for now?
I think always there's a bit of a disconnect, isn't there, between different players. So it's like I would often like to sort of leave nice reviews or friendly feedback for my shows that I listen to, but there's sort of nothing built into the player that I use. Sort of like I would have to go to maybe Spotify or Apple. Like I think that's a bit of a disconnect. And then a lot of the time is sort of discovering podcasts. I think that whole area is quite ripe to be improved upon.
Any thoughts on solving that problem yourself, or one thing at a time?
Yeah, one thing at a time.
Fair enough. Is there any tech that is on your wish list, especially as you are starting your content creation journey? Is there something that you want to buy, or even something that isn't out there that you want to see created and available for content creators?
In terms of hardware, I think is kind of all very usable. Like I've got quite a technical background, but the things that really get me down are the time for editing. And I've played around with software tools that allow you to sort of reorganize the audio in your podcast as if it's a text document and that sort of thing. But then I've not found the quality to be as great. And I'm trying to also repurpose that content to make use of the video, and I'm finding it's a bit tricky to go between video and audio back again, and trying to keep the audio quality high, but I'm not able to do that within the video tools. So yeah, I think there needs to be some joining up in that space, or maybe I just haven't found the right tools yet.
It's interesting you say that. That's an area that we're doing some research and development into, and I will take your notes into mine as we are plotting out our little plan there. And lastly, because you already mentioned that you have a whole bunch on your playlist, is there a podcast or two that you absolutely cannot miss? Right, as soon as that new episode hits your feed, you're like, "Oh, stop what I'm listening to. I'm going over to this show."
I think for me, it's going to be a show called The Clean Energy Show. The Clean Energy Show. It's by a couple of guys in Canada, and I'm someone who's very involved in sort of the environmental movement, but what they do is always bring the positive news stories about that and practical things that you can do, and sort of debunking a lot of myths. They always have new things that I've not heard of. And yeah, I think it's been really encouraging for me.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think we could all use a bit of optimistic, potentially positive news in our lives. So
yeah,
it sounds like a good one to check out. Well, we've been chatting with Damian Moore. He's the founder and CEO of Audio Audit. You can check it out again at audioaudit.io. And if you want to see more of the stuff that Damian's up to, we'll have links to all the social media handles that we have. So, Damian, thank you so much for taking some time today to tell us about Audio Audit.
No problem. It's been a pleasure.